Welcome, everyone. This is the November TV Toastmasters. This will be shown in December, so Thanksgiving is over with. I don't know if you realize that. Christmas is on its way. New Year's is on its way. We're going to have a great show for you today. We have 4 speakers, and we have a new member who's going to probably get involved in Tabletopics, and we have a guest running our camera for us, Cheryl. And so let's not waste any more time and call up our Toastmaster for today, Steve Ahrenholz. Steve.
Thank you, Rick. Well, welcome everyone today to our TV Toastmasters meeting for November. And as Rick mentioned, this will be shown in December. So really today we cover Thanksgiving, we cover Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever holidays you have before you, and we'll be talking to you during the month that those all occur. What I'd like to do today to start our meeting is call up our Word of the Day participant, and I thought I had printed this out before I left home here, and I do have it, my introductory materials here. I've asked some of our people that are talking today to give us some insight as to why they participate in Toastmasters or what they get out of it. And our word of the day is going to be presented by Don West. He's been a member of TV Toastmasters since June 2009, so he's one of our newer members, which is just fabulous. He likes TV Toastmasters because of the really fine people who attend the third Saturday meetings. So you all are really fine people. And those of you looking in are fine people as well. We'd love to have you show up in person, but we're still glad you look in. Don says he benefits greatly by learning from other speakers and his own experiences at the lectern. So help me welcome Don West for our word of the day. Don.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. A member since 2008. I made a mistake, I guess, on there. It was 2008, June of 2008. So the word of the day is risibility. It means able to laugh. Able to laugh. It's a noun. I could use it in a sentence, perhaps, to help clarify what it is. The human animal possesses the quality of risibility. Now that's the use of the adjective, risible. So I'll count how many times you all use that word today in your speeches.
Thank you, Don. So everyone try to use the word of the day in your presentations or your speaking. The next portion of our meeting is going to be dedicated to that part of the meeting where we practice thinking and speaking on our feet. And our Tabletopics master today is Mary Arms. She will be presenting us with different questions, and then she'll call on someone to provide a response. Help me welcome our Tabletopics master today, Mary Arms.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm horrible at just speaking right on, someone give me a question. I run the other way. So I'm going to give each one of these wonderful people a chance to, give their perfect answer. And the first person I'm going to call is Gordon Kelly. Gordon, what annual televised sporting event is an absolute must-see for you? What annual televised sporting event is an absolute must-see for you?
That's pretty easy when it would be the NFL last game that they play, the Super Bowl, which everybody's aware of. I always watch that. At least I turn the TV on. I have a habit of turning the TV on and not really watching the show per se. I'll sit there and do something else. Last night, for instance, I had the TV on, and my wife has something coming up Monday night, some kind of a party, so she's invited a lot of women over. So she goes out and buys a whole faucet set that she wants me to put in. So I'm sitting there last night getting all the old stuff out of the faucets and all of that. So really, it would be the Super Bowl. The thing that I have in my hand here is, I don't know if everybody knows what this is. You guys all know what this is? I just find these fascinating. I wish I could tape and put the Super Bowl on here. Maybe you can. But I was, the other day, a guy came down to my office and plugged in an old laptop so I could get some old files out, and he plugged in a thumb drive, which I had already had a thumb drive. We call them thumb drives. I guess they're flash drives, thumb drives. I think initially they called them thumb drives because they were shaped like your thumb. But then I said, hey, where can you get the thumb drive you had? He had this really neat one. And he said, just go on tire.com. So I went on there. They have thumb drives on there that are up to 64 gigabytes that sell for about $700, which is more than your computer, which means you can carry everything around in your pocket with a thumb drive. But I don't know if you can actually tape the Super Bowl on there and carry it around. I'm not sure of that yet. I'm going to find out.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Now, my next victim is going to be Steve. Steve, you have just written a book about raising cockroaches for fun and profit. Explain to us why we should buy this book. You have just written a book about raising cockroaches for fun and profit. Explain to us why we should buy this book.
Madam Tabletopics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and our honored guests, about my new book on raising cockroaches and why you should buy it. Well, let me tell you, cockroaches are one of those creatures that I really hadn't encountered until I moved to Cincinnati and found them in my apartment. I found them to be really persistent creatures. You'll hear people talk once in a while about if the planet were destroyed, the only creatures that would be left would be cockroaches. I don't know if that's true or not, although I think they are pretty durable as far as a pest goes. And they certainly are as far as the aggravation factor is concerned. I would say that the reason you would want to buy my book is A, if you're not any good at following directions, that means you'll probably get rid of your cockroach problem. And secondly, if the instructions in my book and my discussion don't really seem to be helping you, you can still use the book to just slam those suckers dead. And I would leave it out, you know, with maybe some little bug guts on it so that they can see it and it'd be a deterrent. They'd say, don't go in there because you'll get hit by the book. That's why you need to get my book on cockroaches. Madam Tabletopics Master?
Okay, the next person is Sheila Baker. Okay, if you could be any age again for 1 week, what age and why? If you could be any age again for 1 week, what age and why?
Well, thank you, Madam Tabletopics Master. I'm sure this will upset you. It would be before you were born. This is my sister, in case you didn't notice. I would like to be younger than I was when I went to school. School's okay, but when I really liked it before I went to school, I think I would like to be 3. 3 years old. At 3, you're still considered cute. 3, you don't get spanked that much. 3, you can hang out in the yard. Nobody bothers you. No one expects you to take out the garbage or wash the dishes or pay bills. I think 3 would be a lovely age. Now, if I had to pick another age, would of course, no, an adult is not supposed to pick age 3. It would be 30. At age 30, I thought, at last, I'm old enough to be considered an adult, 30 years old. I didn't consider anything before that, so obviously I was irresponsible before I was 30. But I said, today I am an adult on my 30th birthday. I'm going to party for the next couple of years, and I did. I wasn't exactly responsible, but it was a great time. Madam Tabletopics Master?
Okay, the next person I have is Paul Wessels. Paul, If you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10, what advice would you give yourself? If you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10, what advice would you give yourself?
Boy, this is going to be risible because I can't think of anything. Let's see. Age of 10, I would probably tell myself to be yourself more often. At that age, you tend to look at the cool. I keep thinking when I was 10, I was a very shy individual in school, and I tended to follow the cool kids. I was never really athletic, and I always wanted to be athletic. And what I tell my kids now is, don't follow, if I don't know if they're cool kids or not cool kids or whatever, but I say don't follow those guys. Make your own path. Don't try to be somebody else. So I think if I was 10 years old, because I was just so intimidated by other people, that I would just follow along and do what they said and that sort of thing. So I think I'd say be yourself. 10 years old, boy, I'd love to know what I know now. Wouldn't everybody? Know what you know now and be 10 years old again. I'd probably want to take school a little bit more as opposed to sports. Back then when you're 10, it's a little different. What's important is who's cool, I thought, and then sports. I would have studied a little bit more. I know that's, 10 years old. Boy, if you could be 10 years old and concentrate on studies a little bit more, I think you would profit from that. So if I was 10 years old, that's what I would do. Thank you.
Now I have one last question I'm going to ask. Miss Sheila, would you like to come up? Good. Okay, the question is, some people say a little white lie is sometimes okay. What do you think? Some people say a little white lie is sometimes okay. What do you think?
Well, there's nothing like putting me on the spot my first time up here. So a little white lie. I believe we've all told them. I know I'm guilty of it. I believe if it's not going to harm anyone and it's just to kind of fib and maybe play along with a child or even just to tease someone, I think it's okay. I think there has to be definitely that discernment what a little white lie is, and it definitely can't tumble into a bigger lie. So you have to be careful with what you do, but I think if it's just in good fun, it's okay. As far as have I ever told a white lie, I have to admit, and an example would be, no, officer, I wasn't speeding. I think we've all been guilty of that. So again, little white lies that don't hurt anything and are just in good fun, I think are okay. Has anyone out here ever told a white lie? No, so I guess I'm the only one here. So, as far as, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my time going here. Oh, good, so that would be my little white lie. Thank you very much.
Michelle. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Good questions. Now we're going to move on. Excuse me. Now we're going to move on to our prepared speech portion of our program. And our first speaker today will be presenting the second speech from the Competent Communicator Manual. The speech is 5 to 7 minutes in duration. The objective, or the title of the actual project, is Organize Your Speech. And the title of the speech, which Phil Rigg will be presenting, is entitled, How We Owe Thanksgiving to a Woman. How We Owe Thanksgiving to a Woman, presented to us by Phil Rigg. Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. Well, this week is Thanksgiving week. It's a time for family, friends, food, obviously, and maybe even some football. But whatever your traditions might be, let's forget about the history that you thought you knew, because I discovered a lot of things in researching this speech. Because no traditions. There wouldn't be any turkey, stuffing, cranberries, the pumpkin pie. There wouldn't even be a national holiday if it weren't for an incredible woman. So let's talk about history.
Now we know the story, we've heard the story of the Pilgrims and the Mayflower and the Indians and Plymouth Rock. But the Pilgrims actually called themselves the Puritans. They were more or less a kind of religious extremist of their day. And they left England to get away and enjoy religious freedom. They didn't go to the New World. They went to Holland. When they got to Holland, they realized that the Dutch were partiers. They considered them ungodly. Sometimes they'd even flash a little ankle above a wooden shoe. So what the Puritans did at that point is they got into the stock market, like anybody else. They they negotiated with a London stock firm to finance their trip to the New World. As a matter of fact, 2/3 of the people on the Mayflower were employed by the stock company. They were speculators. So after they dropped off the Puritans, the Pilgrims on Plymouth Rock, they sailed around the New World looking for ports and venues that may make some money for the stock company before they went on back to England. The Pilgrims struggled. That first winter and that spring, they lost 46 out of 102. And if it had not been for the local Wampanoag tribe, they probably would have all died. So, 1621. We're talking about the first Thanksgiving, the story we all know about. The Pilgrims didn't call it Thanksgiving. They were celebrating an English traditional harvest festival. But 91 Indians showed up. The Pilgrims are a little bit outnumbered, so of course they welcomed them, and they were also armed. So they got together for 3 days. They had a 3-day feast with brotherhood, peace, and reasonable communications. So that's a story we've all heard of. The second Thanksgiving wasn't the following year. It didn't take place until June 29th, 1676. It took place in Charlestown, Massachusetts. And the reason why they had a day of thanks, they were celebrating a recent victory over the heathen savages that were their neighbors. So it had a little bit of a different flair on the second Thanksgiving. Now the third Thanksgiving didn't come to over a century later. We are in the middle of the Revolution. It happened in 1777. All 13 colonies got together and had a day of thankfulness after winning a small victory over the British at the Battle of Saratoga. But after the Revolution, well, the 13 colonies weren't united anymore. They couldn't agree on much of anything. In 1789, George Washington proclaimed a national day of Thanksgiving. Most of the country boycotted because they thought it was way too British. So, and as a matter of fact, later, President Thomas Jefferson outright said, we will not have a national day of Thanksgiving. So that could have been it. It could have died right there. But in 1863, in the midst of a bloody civil war, when so many Americans were suffering incredible loss, Abraham Lincoln declared that the third Thursday of November would be a national day of Thanksgiving. But he doesn't deserve the credit. The credit goes to a woman from Newport, New Hampshire. She was a single mother of 5. Her name was Sarah Josepha Hale. Sarah Josepha Hale. You may know her, something that she wrote. She was a poet. She wrote a poem called Mary Had a Little Lamb, so you might be familiar with that. But what you may not be familiar with is she was an editor. She was editor of Boston Ladies Magazine and later Goody's Ladies Books, which were popular periodicals at the time. But she had an obsession. Her obsession that was one day the nation would set aside a day for all people to count their blessings and to be thankful for the things that God gave them. That's what she said. So besides editorials, she also wrote countless letters to politicians, governors, and presidents. So after 40 years, it took her 40 years of endless campaigning, a person that did not have the right to vote, she must have been very thankful to see that her dream became a national dream and shared with everyone. Since then, every president has declared a national day of Thanksgiving. Sometimes the dates change. As a matter of fact, FDR bumped it back a week so that we'd have a longer Christmas shopping season during the Depression, hoping to spur on the economy. And in 1941, Congress made it official that the third Thursday of every November would be a national day of Thanksgiving. So there we have our tradition. So I love Thanksgiving, personally. It's one of my favorite holidays simply because it doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't even matter what language you speak. If you watch the news, you can see people that are in worse shape than you may be. Everyone has a reason to be thankful. So this Thursday, when you're having your turkey, all the dressings, you're done, you sit down, maybe watch some football, you have a tryptophan food coma. I want you to think of a great American, Sarah Josepha Hale, because without her, next Thursday would just be another thankless work day. So I want to thank you all for your time, and most of all, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Glitchner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
Our next speaker will be giving us a presentation also from the Competent Communicators Manual. This will be the fourth project in that manual, and the objective for that speech is how to say it. Christine Sullivan has been a member of TV Toastmasters since July of 2008, and she is an officer in our club. She's always open to new things during her travels and is here to tell us about her latest experience riding a Segway. And the title of her speech is New Experiences Riding a Segway. Christine?
For those of you who know what I do for a living, I travel quite a bit. So I have an opportunity to soak up the sights and experience new things. Lately, I've been stationed in Branson, Missouri, and they have shows and shopping and such. But one of the things I stumbled across was a Segway park. And for those who have never seen a Segway, picture a pogo stick on top of a dumbbell. Except for a bar, you actually have a platform. Well, they had an office park where you could actually rent a Segway, which I thought was a pretty novel idea. It was pretty economical, too. It was $20 for 20 minutes. And so I decided, why not? Let's do it. My husband came with me, actually. And the venue had both off-road, which had tires about this big, and then they had the street version, which, being a novice, that was the version that I went for. Now, they have speed limits on these Segways. They can go 12 miles an hour at full speed. However, being a novice, they set it at 5 miles an hour so that you don't have the risk of falling off the Segway, theoretically. So we went ahead, signed up. We got the 2 Segways set out. The trainer came out and gave us a tutorial. And he looked all of about 12 years old, but, you know, I'm willing to take that instruction, hands-on training. But I knew I was in trouble when the instructor handed us helmets. And in order to navigate a Segway, it's all about balance. To move forward, you lean forward. To brake, you lean backwards. Sounds simple, right? If you're not that balanced, I wouldn't recommend a Segway. But after about 3-4 minutes, you kind of feel, okay, I can do this. And from there, the instructor says, okay, let's get you started on the track. Now, this particular track was a paved pathway with twists and turns on the side of a hill. And the very first starting place for the Segway, for whatever reason, happens to be the steepest downhill grade out of the entire office park. So that's never a good thing for a beginner. But I went ahead, full of confidence, got on the Segway, and started to go down this hill, and promptly forgot everything that I was just taught. And suddenly I'm careening out of control, and the trainer has to jump off his Segway to actually get in front of mine to stop it from going down. From there, I'm like, okay, I need to take this a little slower. But I got back on the Segway, and afterwards I soon discovered that just the slightest shift in your balance moves the Segway either forwards or backwards. It's very sensitive. So if you are very abrupt in your movements, it can definitely throw you off course, literally. They actually can go backwards, but they don't recommend your Segway go backwards because it torques the motor a little bit. Well, after about 5 minutes on the track, I was getting the hang of it, and I noticed that I picked up some speed, and I was okay with that. I could do this. But then all of a sudden, I noticed the Segway platform I was standing on was tilting backwards. And I wasn't really sure what was going on, and it was happening very fast. And so ultimately, I wound up clinging to the bar with the platform leaning backwards, and the trainer ran out onto the track and stopped me, because apparently that's the cue. If you go over 5 miles an hour, it tilts your platform back. So with that, I decided I'm going to take it slow. I went very slow the rest of the course. But I think overall, it was a good experience. It was a risible experience for me. One that I was willing to try and ultimately happy I did. I do have to say, though, I turned to my husband afterwards in the car, and I said, I feel like I should lean backwards to brake the car, which is not really a good idea. But apparently, the more time you have under your belt, the faster you can go. They'll set it at a higher speed for you. And I'd be game to try it again. Even though I did this in Branson, Missouri, I did some research, and there is a local Segway store here in Cincinnati on Vine Street that you can rent these Segways for a allotted period of time. But there's also guided tours. They have a guided tour in Eden Park, which is about 90 minutes for $50. I think it'd be absolutely beautiful in the spring. Something that I think I'm willing to entertain. I can practice my balancing skills in the process between now and then, and I think having the opportunity to try a Segway, I would definitely do it again. I think it's an experience you won't forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
I'd like to begin tonight with a little joke. This guy, he's a farmer, and he says, hey, hello, sorry. But seriously, folks.
Speaking in public is no joke.
Doctor says, chicken says...
For help, call Toastmasters, the public speaking support group.
The chicken.
Our next speaker is going to be giving us speech number 7 from the Competent Communication Manual. This is also a 5 to 7 minute speech. The objective is to research a topic well and give a presentation on it. Rick Barron will be giving the presentation. He is a certified life success consultant and the host of a program on Anderson Public Access Television titled Cause and Success. You might see me on that, where he presents practical tools that make wealth a predictable result in your life. Help me welcome Rick Barron, who will be giving us a presentation entitled Good or Great Leadership. Rick?
Thank you, Steve. What's the difference between good leadership and great leadership? To answer this question, I turn to one of the premier leadership experts of our time. John C. Maxwell is an evangelical Christian author, speaker, and pastor who has written more than 50 books on the topic of leadership. He's an internationally recognized leader who's sold over 13 million books. His organizations have trained more than 2 million leaders worldwide. In March of 2008, he published his book, Leadership Gold: Lessons I've Learned from a Lifetime of Leading. 26 lessons to separate great leadership from good leadership. Before I review some of my favorites, I'd like you to take a minute to picture a leader in your life so that we can evaluate their performance. So you may pick a current or a previous boss, maybe a pastor, a neighbor or a friend that led an organization. How about a spouse? Could be. Do you have somebody in your mind? That mental image of that person? Good. Let's proceed. The first lesson. The most difficult person to lead is always yourself. The most difficult person to lead is always yourself. Mr. Maxwell continues to tell us that the key to learning how to lead yourself is to learn followership. The Bishop Fulton Sheen put it in the form of a warning. He says, civilization is always in danger when those who have never learned to obey are given the right to command. Leaders know that they have to earn the right to lead others by effectively leading themselves. Lesson number 2. You know you're in the lead when you get kicked in the rear. You know you're in the lead when you get kicked in the rear. Criticism is a price of leadership. Aristotle provides us some feedback or some coaching on how to avoid criticism. He says, criticism can be avoided early by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. Not really advice for a great leader, is it? No. Great leaders understand that they can turn criticism into rocket fuel to propel themselves and their organizations to new heights. They know that people are more willing to follow when they see that their leader is willing to change first. Lesson number 3. The best leaders are listeners. The best leaders are listeners. They not only hear what's being said, they listen to what's being communicated. Larry King has some advice. He states, I must remind myself every morning that nothing I say this day will teach me anything. So if I'm to learn, I have to do it by listening. Lesson number 4. The best leaders develop their people. The best leaders develop their people. Outstanding leadership typically presents itself in the followers. That's how we see how leadership is really effective, by looking at the followers. Here are 4 tests that you can use to evaluate the leader that you've got in your mind. Number 1, are people following? There is no such thing as a leader without followers. Number 2, are people growing? Progress does not occur without change. Progress does not occur without change. History, men don't make history. Sorry, I blew the quote. I can't remember who it was now. Men make history, not the other way around. Progress occurs when creative, skillful leaders seize the opportunity to change things for the better. Lesson number 4, or sorry, option number 3, or the test number 3, are people growing? Great leaders don't just help people with the task at hand. They help them become better people. Test number 4, are people succeeding? Good leaders may impress others with their results, but great leaders impact others by the people, the followers that they help. In summary, great leadership is about impacting the lives of others in a positive way. How did your leader do? Good or great? Thank you. Mr. Toastmaster?
All the education in the world won't help you get ahead in life if you can't express your ideas effectively. Every day, competition for advancement gets tougher and tougher. You need an edge. A Toastmasters club can give you that edge. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters gives you the confidence to express your ideas to anyone.
Our last prepared speech today is also from the Competent Communicator Manual, and it's actually the very first one. It's an icebreaker. And the individual who's going to be presenting it to us is our immediate past president for TV Toastmasters. I'm curious to hear what he's going to present to us in his speech today. His icebreaker is entitled A Christmas Icebreaker, very timely. A Christmas Icebreaker, Darren Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Yes, this is my icebreaker. It's my second icebreaker. My first icebreaker was 10 years ago. Now, the purpose of an icebreaker is to let people get to know you better. Since I've been in this club for 4 years, obviously, you know something about me. But one thing you may not know is that Christmas is my favorite time of year. So, during this icebreaker, I'd like to give you a window into my past by telling you about some memorable Christmases in my past and as I was growing up. Let's start in 1972. I was 5 years old, and yes, I am that old. My sister and I are eagerly awaiting the arrival of Santa Claus on a cold, snowy day in Gary, Indiana. I am nervous and anxious because I've been waiting for this day for what seems like 11 months, because I can't wait for Santa Claus to arrive. We have many false alarms. About 3 or 4 times during the night, we hear bells on the roof and run to our rooms because you can't have Santa Claus find you, because then, of course, you won't get gifts. We all know that, right? Anyway, once again, I was very anxious, and it took me a long time to finally get to sleep, but I finally nod off. And when I wake, I'm disappointed to know that the agreement my sister and I had been broken. Our agreement was the first person to get up would wake the other before we went to see what Santa Claus had left. But I awoke to find her already in the living room playing with her gifts. But when I walked in, all my anger dissipated because I walked in and saw that Santa Claus had left me everything I'd asked for. I had the little green toy soldiers that every boy my age liked. I had the toy animals that I really liked. I had any number of different toys. And in addition, I had the thing that I really wanted more than anything else. I had my first bicycle, training wheels and all. I just stood there and I said to myself, this is the greatest Christmas ever. Now, let's move ahead. Let's stop in 1987. I'm 19 years old and I just finished my first year in college. I've come home for the first time, and some of my high school friends went off to college like I did. Some went off to the service. Some stayed in Gary. And I learned a very important thing that Christmas. I learned that in those 6 months we'd been gone, all of us, including me, had changed a lot. That first year after you leave home, there's a lot of maturation that occurs. And I realized for the first time that the old phrase, you can never go home again, is definitely appropriate. It was a very interesting experience. I also realized that because my sister also only came home, she'd also moved away. She only came home for 5 days at Christmas. So I began to realize that Christmases from this point forward would take on a different tone. It wasn't as much about getting presents as it was about reconnecting with family and friends, because often, in my case, coming home for Christmas is the only time I see certain people during the year. So it began to take on a different tone and a different importance. Not greater importance, but just a different importance. But once again, the one thing that didn't change is I had a great Christmas. Next, let's jump to 1991. It was my first year out of college, and I was living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. By the time Christmas arrived, we'd had snow on the ground for 8 weeks, and I'm not exaggerating. It snowed on Halloween that year. As I make the snowy drive from Minneapolis to Gary, Indiana, I actually have a sense of pride. And the reason I have a sense of pride is that it's the first time I've had enough money in my pocket to actually buy my parents really nice gifts. I bought them watches. And I was proud because when we were growing up, they sacrificed so that my sister and I could always have enjoyable Christmases. And now I was finally able to return the favor. So once again, I had a great Christmas. Now let's take another leap forward to 2005. By this point, I'm married, and we are making our annual, I call it the travel triangle, which takes us from Cincinnati, Ohio, to Gary, Indiana, to St. Louis, Missouri, which is where my wife was born, then back to Cincinnati in the course of 7 days. It's a very grueling trip. But this is very difficult to keep both families happy. But I also come up at this point with a very important set of rules which will guide my life from that point forward. And those are the rules for buying my wife a Christmas gift. 1, don't expend an excessive amount of time trying to pick out the perfect gift, because the perfect gift does not exist. 2, always keep the receipts. And 3, don't take it personal when she decides to exchange the gift that you thought was the perfect gift because she thinks she found something better. And those have guided my life ever since, have been very valuable. So that Christmas is also important for 2 other reasons. It was the last time I was actually able to spend time with my grandmother because she passed away that following spring. And also, even though we didn't tell anyone during that Christmas trip, 3 weeks earlier, my wife and I had found out that we were going to be parents that following summer. So once again, it was a fantastic Christmas. Now let's move forward into current times, into 2008, last Christmas. My little boy Bryce is eagerly awaiting for the arrival of Santa Claus on a snowless day in Cold Spring, Kentucky, on Christmas Eve in 2008. He watches Elmo Christmas on TV. He helps my wife bake Christmas cookies for Santa Claus to eat. And he has butterflies in his stomach. He can't get to sleep, and he's anxious. But finally, he nods off. But when he wakes up and he runs downstairs, his face just lights up because he sees all the things that he'd wanted for Christmas Santa has left for him. He's got his toy dinosaurs, his toy animals, his Thomas the Train set, his Handy Manny tool set, and he has the biggest smile you've ever seen in the world on his face. And I just look at him, and I say to myself, this is truly the best Christmas ever. Mr. Toastmaster?
What future do you envision for yourself? What dreams do you have? If you want your dreams to come true, you must have confidence in yourself and your abilities. A Toastmasters Club can help you build that confidence. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters shows you how to express yourself clearly and effectively. Make your dreams a reality. Join a Toastmasters Club.
Our general evaluator today is Sheila Mudd-Baker, and she will be introducing her evaluation team. At this point, I'd like to welcome Sheila up here to take over this portion of our meeting. Sheila?
We had several speakers today, and we have several evaluators. Each of our evaluators will first give, before they start their evaluations, they will give the objectives required for the evaluation. Each speech has a set of objectives that need to be judged for the evaluator to judge properly. Our first speaker today was Phil Rigg, and Phil's evaluator is Christine Sullivan. So Christine will first give the objectives, and after she gives the objectives, she will start her evaluation. Please welcome Christine Sullivan.
Phil gave a speech on project number 2, and the objectives are: organize your speech, select an appropriate outline which allows listeners to easily follow and understand your speech, make your message clear with supporting material directly contributing to that message, use appropriate transitions when moving from one idea to another, create a strong opening and conclusion within a 5 to 7 minute time frame. I thought that Phil did a really good job with being a second speech, with the topic being how we owe Thanksgiving to a woman. I thought it was very well thought out. It was very researched. You had a lot of facts and figures and historical people in your speech, so I could tell that you put a lot of energy into making sure that you knew that topic. And I thought that that was impressive. I also thought that in terms of speech value, I thought that it was an interesting topic, timely, and something that maybe the audience didn't quite know much about. And also, I thought overall it left us with something to think about, something that we didn't know before. In terms of the speech itself, I thought that the opening was good but a little short. I felt that it transitioned very abruptly into the body of the speech. And the topic, I thought, was a little misleading because the topic is how we owe Thanksgiving to a woman, and yet really I thought you got to that topic of who the woman actually was pretty into your speech. And so I thought that that would be something you would say first, who it was, and then maybe give us some background about the woman, whereas it was really more about the first Thanksgiving and the holiday and those kind of things, and then you got to tie it into your title. But I did think that the ending was very solid. I liked the sentence that you had: if not for her, next Thursday would be another thankless work day. I think that tied it very, very together from a topic standpoint, and conclusion into tying it into the title of the speech. But overall, I think it was very well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. Our second speaker tonight was Christine. Actually, not tonight. It's still morning here in Anderson Township. Christine, and Christine gave a speech called The New Experiences Writing a Segue, and Christine's evaluator is Paul Wessels. Please welcome Paul Wessels.
Thank you, everyone out there, and particularly Christine. This is project number 4, and the object of project number 4 is to really focus in on words and sentences. And what you want to do is try to convey those words and sentences in a very clear, accurate, and vivid manner. So that was the objective. Christine, overall impressions, it made me want to try one of these segues. To me, it was informative and very interesting. I've seen them. I know a little bit about them, but now I want to try one. Getting down to the words and the sentences, grammar, pronunciation, all very good, I thought. There was no jargon in there, so I understood everything. I understood every sentence. I wasn't confused by anything. And, describing something like that that's kind of off the beaten path was a pretty tough not tough topic, but could get technical, but you kept it very clear and precise. Mental images, I like pogo stick and dumbbell. I think you said it was attached on top of a dumbbell, so I like that. You actually used the word risable, which I liked. So everything was clear, well organized, good opening and close. Room for improvement. It's tough because you didn't give me a lot to go on. You're pretty good. Maybe polishing a little bit of the edges here, but vocal inflections, you had really good hand movement and good facial expressions. Vocal, maybe a little bit more interaction up and down with the vocal. Favorite thing about the speech is, again, it made me want to try one of these segues, and you were very, your facial expressions, particularly when you were talking about going down the first hill, the way you had to lean back. So I saw you could tell you really liked it, and it made me want to like it too, because you had really good facial expressions, and you also had good hand movement when you were talking about it. So that's probably one of the favorite things I liked about the speech. But overall, it was very good, and thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Our next speaker today was Rick Barron, and Rick is being evaluated by Carol Cormelink. Please welcome Carol Cormelink.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest. Rick's objectives for his speech were to collect information about your topic from numerous sources, carefully support your points and opinions with specific facts, examples, and illustrations gathered through research in 5 to 7 minutes. Great speech. Where'd you go? There you are. Oh, running camera. Great speech, Rick. One of the things that I particularly liked about your speech was that you took the mic out and came away from being tethered to the microphone behind the lectern. And I hate that because that always blocks my face, being short. So I'm glad you did that, and I hope there's a better better view of me today instead of being buried by the face, by the mic. One of the things that it said for you to do was to have numerous sources, but it didn't say that you had to use every one of those, and you had searched and you found Maxwell was the perfect one to give the points, and I thought you had, I keep saying I have the trifecta of leadership in Toastmasters, and I was none of those in the beginning. If you didn't do it my way, the highway, I drove people crazy. So all of these things, and I didn't listen to what you had to say, although when I was your mentor, I did listen to what you had to say, and I shouldn't have, because I said, you're officer material, and you said, nah, I've been there, done that, I just want to be a soldier, I've been a general, and now you're an officer, and I went, well, I should not have totally listened to you. And last night when we were talking, a little secret, Rick and I had sex before the meeting. We had speaker, evaluator, exchange of information. And when I talked to him last night, he said that he was going to take the microphone out of the holder. And I said, well, make sure that you don't pace. But I didn't mean that you had to stand there in one little place. So you have to adopt some suggestions to what works for you. And you could have used a little bit. One of the things, there was only one little point where I got a little confused. You were going point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5. And the next thing was test 3 and test 4. And that confused me a little. I'm going, oh, was I not listening? When he was talking about tests, he was talking about points, and now he's talking about tests. But it didn't take away from the value of your speech, because it's still, what you were saying was very good. You do have, and it was very excellently organized. The one little thing is in your voice, you have the confident pilot voice, a flat intonational voice, calm, that gives an air of confidence. So I don't say that you should go up and down and rate your voice up and down, the pitch a lot, but you can vary rate when you have that flat intonational, because that denotes confidence. If the pilot said, we're flying at 35,000 feet and we're going to arrive in about an hour, you think, do I want to be on this plane? So you have the voice of confidence when you're talking, at least it comes across to me. And the most impressive thing was that you delivered the speech without notes, even the quotes. You tripped up on one slightly, but I'm sitting there amazed. Where's his notes for doing these quotes? And that was excellent. I enjoyed your speech. I go along with everything. To be a great leader, you didn't get there by yourself. It was all the people that you helped along the way that put you where you were. And I wasn't paying attention to the cards, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Carol. Our fourth speaker today was Darren Henderson, and Darren will be evaluated by Gordon Kelly. Please welcome Gordon.
Darren, as always, I thought you gave a really great speech. My job today is, one of the main points of my job anyway, is to point the speaker toward methods of improvement. He was actually advised to use notes if necessary and to forget about body language, so I won't touch on those too much. I thought you showed experience, of course, and calmness and control. I believe the audience was able to learn about your past Christmases. I thought that was pretty clear. So I thought you walked through the process very well. The points that I'm going to throw out are really the improvement points, so we'll get right to those, because you know the speech was good. But because I was sitting there evaluating, one of the things that came to my mind, because I was writing some at the beginning, I think it would be great if you could open up with more of a bang, let's say, or ho, 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 or I think something to get the attention. And that maybe it was just me that wasn't paying enough attention, I'm not sure. I think another thing that could have been done was, because it was a Christmas speech, that maybe some Christmas items could have been portrayed, or the set could have been set up a little bit more Christmassy. Would have helped us stay in the moment, so to speak. And even though it talked about you could use notes if necessary, I kind of felt the notes you were using were more of a distraction than anything, because you knew the speech. And I did notice you noticed the notes, but it seemed like you were really just distracted by them more than anything. Another thing that I kind of felt might be improved a little bit is slow up on certain portions of the speech. I didn't designate those necessarily, but there were some portions where I thought you just talked a little fast. But as always, it was a very good speech, and we appreciate it. And I'm sure you'll get us some more out of this manual. Thank you.
With that, our next meeting will be on December 19th, 2009. We start at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning here at the Anderson Community Television Studio in Anderson Center at 9 a.m. December 19th. And I'm going to close our meeting for Rick Davis, because he's our director and he's not here. It's hard to be behind and in front of the camera at the same time. So with that, we wish you all a very good, safe, and healthy holiday season, and we hope to see you soon.